For those of you who may not know us, Housing Europe is the European Federation of Public, Cooperative and Social Housing. We're based in Brussels, and our network brings together housing providers, researchers, and policymakers from across Europe, combining policy work, innovation, research, all for the common goal of affordable housing for all. Before starting with the meeting today, maybe let me start by reminding you of a few house rules so that the meeting today can run smoothly. I will ask you to please mute your microphones when you're not speaking. Also, please keep in mind that the meeting will be recorded. And I also invite all of you to post your comments and questions directly in the chat. And towards the end of the meeting, my colleague will help us with dealing with the questions. So going back to today's event, so the Housing Europe Observatory, which we represent, has become a reference for all things housing at European level, including thanks to our biannual report on the state of housing in Europe. And I will ask my colleagues to maybe share with you the links to the report in the chat. But as a follow-up to that, what we would like to do is to start today a series of talks that really give us the possibility to zoom in on a specific topic or on a specific country. And in this perspective, in today's webinar, we'll be taking a closer look to the housing landscape in the Republic of Cyprus. And we will explore how the housing system works, the policies that have shaped over time, and some of the challenges that people in Cyprus are facing today when it comes to housing. We will also look ahead to the priorities that will shape the Council of the European Union presidency that is held by Cyprus during this first part of 2026, at a time when housing has really become such an important issue on the European agenda. So we are very fortunate to have three speakers with us today who can help us navigating all this information and shed some light on these issues. So joining us from the capital, Nicosia, we have today Patrina Taramidou, who is Director of Housing Policy and European Affairs at the Ministry of Interior. And from the same ministry, we also have Elena Patsalou, who is Senior Officer for Housing Policy and European Affairs Directorate. And then from Brussels this time, from the Republic of Cyprus Permanent Representation to the European Union, we have with us Maria Toumazou, who is the Social Attaché and Chair of the Social Questions Working Party on Affordable Housing. I would start to jump right into the issue for today and to get our conversation started. I'd like to start with a question to Patrina. Patrina, if you can soon unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. Yes, hello.
Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. And my question to you would be, what housing challenges has Cyprus been facing during the last years, and what measures have been taken at national level to address them? And if you can also reflect on to what extent and how these support measures have performed in practice. So thank you, Patrina. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. First of all, I would like to say that in the recent years, Cyprus has been facing a crisis in housing, and in particular affordable housing, as it is the case in most European countries. So we are not alone in this. This has been a result of many factors, which are again common in many European countries: rising construction and energy costs, increased demand, which does not go in pace with the supply, which is limited. And this has been exacerbated by foreign investment and relocation trends because of other factors. Underutilized housing stock. And I would say short-term rentals have also made an impact in some areas. And the problem has been mostly in urban areas, like in the capital of Nicosia, and Limassol in particular has quite a bit of problem. So as a result of all this, we have been faced with a significant burden by many people, especially young people and families, which cannot afford to buy their own home or even afford to rent. So what we have been doing, the Ministry of Interior, this is where the housing policy is mostly formulated in Cyprus, has undertaken this comprehensive housing policy, which is based on two strategic axes. One is increasing housing supply, and the other is facilitating access to housing. So the measures have been a combination of these two, because we know that we need to increase supply, and also when you help people have access to housing, when these two work together, you achieve best results. So given that demand for housing remains high while supply is not increasing at the same time, we took measures to increase the construction of new housing, as well as utilize the existing residential units. So we are trying to gradually rebalance this demand and supply in order to ease pressure on purchase and rental prices. Now, if we look at on the boosting supply, the key national measures have been, the first step was to streamline procedures, especially when we talk about planning procedures. We have actually reduced approval times to between 40 and 80 working days, depending on the project type. We're talking about low to medium risk developments. And in this way, by having licenses issued faster, this helps have developments sooner. Another scheme was the targeted building planning incentive for developers to the private sector, by giving them additional building coefficient of up to 45%, provided that their projects include affordable housing units. And there has also been the build to rent scheme, which offers, again, extra coefficient, again, up to 45%, on the condition that the units arising from the additional coefficient are rented at affordable rent for 6 years, at least 6 years. And also we have the Cyprus Land Development Corporation, which is a semi-governmental organization, and we have strengthened their role by subsidizing some of their projects in order to produce more developments to be given at affordable rentals. And now, when we come to the other axis, which is facilitating access to housing, we have had 3 schemes. One was the housing scheme for young people up to the age of 41. And these are in the form of grants for acquiring a house or a flat for the first home. They shouldn't have another home. The other scheme is the housing scheme for, it's called revitalization of mountainous disadvantaged rural areas and the areas bordering the buffer zone, because as you know, in Cyprus, after the 1974 invasion, we have a buffer zone separating the occupied territories. So the area there has been, like on the buffer zone, has been considered disadvantaged because not many people wanted to move there. So these are under the same scheme, these areas. And it's a grant given to people to encourage residents in these areas with the aim of first addressing depopulation in those areas, but also reduce pressure in urban areas. So it works in both ways. And the last housing scheme It's the grants given, the financial support given to refugees of the 1974 invasion under the Service for the Care and Rehabilitation of Displaced Persons to meet their housing needs. So overall, it has been this combination of measures that work well together. Now, if you want me to give you an assessment of how these measures have worked, we have had them running for the last 3 years so far, with the exclusion of the scheme referring to mountainous rural areas, etc., who has been running for longer, for 5 years up to now. We have been very pleased with the overall performance. I can be quite specific, can give you some numbers if that would be interesting to you. Through the streamlining of procedures, we have had, like in the last year that this has been working, applications, more than 2,500 applications for very simple, for houses, and up to nearly 6,000 applications for flats, up to 20 flats, that the licenses were issued between 40 and 80 days. And this in numbers means that nearly 6,000 households will meet their housing needs approximately 1 year earlier. And this is what I talked before, that this is very important, because when you have results earlier, you have developments earlier. Okay, then the figures may appear, I have to comment that, may appear modest for larger countries, but for the size of Cyprus, they present a substantial step forward. Now, moving on to the incentive schemes and the build-to-rent schemes, we have had like a very big interest. We have had 46 applications corresponding to more than 2,500 residential units over the next 2 years, and 400 of those will be affordable. And also we have had 24 applications to purchase the right, but give a monetary, it's like you pay to get it, but you don't use it, so you give money back, and that comes up to 13 million that goes to a special fund that has been set up to support the Cyprus Land Development Corporation for its own plans. The Renovate and Rent scheme had a low uptake, but we went through the overall scheme and had made significant revisions. The new scheme has been only just announced, and we are hoping that it will work better. And when we come to the Cyprus Land Development Corporation, through the help we added to its work, we are expecting about 250 residential units for sale at affordable prices, and about 200 units for affordable rent. Now, for the scheme for the young people up to 41 years old, we had grants amounting up to 15 million, and it's about 400 young people or families. Under the scheme for mountainous and rural areas, we have had about 3,000 people, 2,000 people approved, with a total grants up to now amounting to 77 million. And the housing schemes for the displaced persons under the Service for the Care and Rehabilitation of Displaced Persons, only in the last year, we have had about 2,500 people approved, and a total amount of 56 million given. So as you see, it's quite a lot of help for the size of Cyprus. We think that it's quite successful, what has been done up to now. But obviously, our policies continue to evolve. We take into consideration external factors, market trends, demography, European initiatives. But my colleagues will talk about it further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrina. It was very interesting to hear about this new comprehensive strategy when it comes to housing policy in Cyprus. Maybe I'll take advantage of my position as a moderator today, so we'll have questions later, but I have just one question for you. Do you think we can safely say that, the focus on housing policy is now much higher in Cyprus than in the past? And there are also, we heard quite some news and new schemes.
Yes, I would say that this is quite correct. There have always been some schemes like the ones for the displaced persons and for the mountainous and rural areas, but because the crisis has become more evident in the past 3-4 years, we realized that there is growing and urgent need to take more immediate measures. This is why this comprehensive housing policy came up about 3 years ago, and it's continuing to evolve. Yeah. And this is why also it has become a priority under our presidency.
Thank you very much, Patrina, indeed. So just a small reminder to the participants that you can post at any time your questions and comments in the chat, and then we will have time more towards the end of this meeting to go through them. So thank you very much to Patrina. We've heard about the recent changes in housing policy, and it seems to me some of those changes are very telling, also in the perspective of the broader, let's say, Mediterranean or Southern Europe. We recognize some of the things that you mentioned, like reactions to the issue, for instance, of tourism, especially in the most attractive areas, and also this new focus from housing policy also on the rental sector, which is something that strikes me as interesting in your presentation. But maybe now, and I would turn now to your colleague Elena. So we hear what is happening today, but looking ahead, do you think that further action is needed? Particularly, I'm thinking to support younger people, younger households who face difficulties in access to affordable housing in cities such as Limassol, Nicosia, Paphos, and so on. And in this sense, what recent measures or initiatives is the government pursuing to enhance affordability and accessibility in the future? Then the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to answer this question. I would like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, and good morning to everyone as well. Now, going back to Alice's question, I would say that while housing policies in Cyprus have been largely successful in supporting access to housing and maintaining high levels of home ownership, today's housing landscape presents new and more complex challenges, particularly for younger people. Housing affordability has become an increasing concern, especially in urban centers such as you said, Limassol, Nicosia, Larnaca, and Paphos. This, as my colleague Patrina mentioned before, is driven by a combination of factors, including the rising property prices and construction costs, the increased demand, which was partly linked to foreign investment and relocation trends, the stagnant wage growth relative to housing costs, and the limited supply of affordable rental housing. Now, young people are disproportionately affected by these developments, and many face difficulties in saving up for a deposit. They rely heavily on the private rental market, and they often encounter stricter lending conditions when seeking housing finance. One can argue that these realities highlight the need for a more balanced and forward-looking housing policy approach. And in response to this, Cyprus continues to evolve its housing strategy, building on existing policies while adapting to emerging needs and develop new policies. I would say that our approach is aligned with the broader European priorities, including the European Affordable Housing Plan, with a particular emphasis on supporting younger generations, the low-income households, single parents, and families with children, but as well as people in vulnerable situations, including older people living on low pensions and persons with disabilities. I could say that it includes both facilitating access to home ownership and expanding affordable rental options. So within this context, and in this context, we have already taken important steps. Cyprus is advancing a key initiative to develop affordable rental housing on state-owned land, targeting low and middle income households. This represents a significant shift towards addressing gaps in the rental market and providing more accessible options for those who are not yet in a position to buy a house or an apartment. This scheme provides for the construction of approximately 500 affordable rental units on state land. And this was announced with a total investment exceeding 75 million euros. And the completion of these housing units, the completion horizon is expected, and it is set for 2029 to 2031. The objective is to increase affordable housing options, obviously for young people, for young families, and low and income earners. These apartment buildings will be constructed by the private sector using the design and build method on state-owned plots, while the management of these units will be undertaken by the Cyprus Land and Development Corporation, as Patrina said, a semi-governmental housing corporation. At the same time, to meet specific needs of people, we are implementing the collective housing units construction scheme for workers in the commerce, in industry and the tourism and the tourist sector. This scheme includes specific requirements for site selection and minimum technical standards, with the possibility of application to both new and existing buildings. Furthermore, the student housing units coordination construction scheme was announced, aiming at addressing the growing demand for student accommodation and stabilizing the rental prices in areas with a stronger student presence. This is a new type, a modern type of student housing that differs from traditional dormitories as we know them, with reduced requirements regarding the overall size of support and common areas, and there is no obligation to provide shared facilities, and there is greater flexibility with in parking provisions. The construction of these student housing units is allowed in standalone developments, as well as in combination with other uses such as residential, commercial, and office uses, and it's possible both in new developments and under certain conditions in existing buildings. At the same time, and in addition to that, we are placing strong emphasis on evidence-based policymaking. Through the technical support instrument of the DG reform, we are working closely with the OECD to carry out a comprehensive assessment of housing needs across the country. This work will support the development of more targeted policy tools and sustainable funding models to address both current and future housing challenges. Furthermore, we continue to promote broader consultation with key shareholders, including the local authorities, the private sector, the civil society, to ensure that our policies are inclusive, they are targeted, and are responsive to real needs. In conclusion, I would say that while our current policies provide a solid foundation, we are actively strengthening and evolving our approach that housing in Cyprus remains accessible and affordable, particularly for younger people navigating an increasingly challenging housing market. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Elena. That was extremely interesting, and thank you for highlighting in particular the importance of really rooting housing policies in the overall thinking about demographic change and the groups of the population that are most in need and most affected these days. I think this also gives a nice moving to the next speaker, because I know that this is also one of the key issues at the European level. But then I would ask Maria to comment around the third question. That is, so we know that Cyprus currently holds the presidency of the Council of the European Union. And this is a time when the housing crisis has become such an issue across Europe. And it's also a major issue for the European Union, especially with reference to the newly approved European Affordable Housing Plan. So, Maria, from the presidency's perspective, what are the main priorities and milestones when it comes to housing?
Thank you very much, Alice, for the floor. Building up on what Patrina and Elena said, indeed, this is a time where Cyprus, as well as the rest of the EU countries, face this issue, and collectively it has been put up high on the agenda, both on national policies as well as EU guidelines, at least for this programming period. So Cyprus holds the presidency during this time, following just now the launch of the European Affordable Housing Plan, which was communicated by the Commission in December 2025. And taking this opportunity on behalf of the whole team, we would like to sincerely thank our Danish colleagues for the excellent work that they have done on this file and their commitment and dedication to bringing the issues forward and promoting discussions at the European level. And the Cyprus presidency then builds on this work, as well as the European momentum on this very important issue, and is forwarding the agenda on social housing. As it has been very well explained, The competent Ministry of Cyprus is the Ministry of Interior. Of course, some competences on housing or other complementary policies rely within other ministries as well. But the main lead in the policy area of housing is the Ministry of Interior, which of course guides also the priorities of the European presidency. And it is very fortunate that actually the European Affordable Housing Plan is setting these 4 pillars, basically, which is mostly on boosting supply, on mobilizing investment, enabling immediate support and reforms, and protecting the most affected, which align very closely with our own priorities. During our presidency, we will focus, and we have already begun work on 4 main thematic areas. Firstly, to ensure affordable and sustainable housing for all. With all, basically, we refer to all European citizens, but our particular focus is on low and middle income households, as well as young persons and families with children, that it is well established that they face at this moment the greater difficulties in acquiring affordable housing, with all the consequences that this has on their lives, on the communities, and on the future of the European Union as a whole. Secondly, our main priority is mobilizing investment, because without investments, we cannot ensure quality, first of all, and timely delivery of housing. So we need both private and public investments. And also we are looking into the EU reforms and solutions that are being offered at this moment. Thirdly, we are focusing our efforts on streamlining and simplification at national and regional level, with the sole aim of accelerating housing supply. We want to lessen the administrative burdens that create obstacles or barriers, both for companies, for developers, as well as individuals, into acquiring in a timely manner the homes that they need. And for this, it's very fortunate that in Cyprus we have schemes and practices that we can also share, but we are really looking forward, and we are aiming at gathering all the information at EU level on how really we can streamline and simplify without, of course, losing or sacrificing quality in no way. And this brings us basically to our 4th main area, which is knowledge exchange and sharing of best practices among member states. One of the greatest contributions of the European Union to our countries is actually this possibility of having open forums of dialogue, of discussion, where we can really learn from one another. And for this, we want to promote and place the emphasis also on high quality, reliable, and comparable data, because we cannot have effective policies without them being evidence-based, without having concrete elements on which we can build our actions and design basically the future of housing. So in these regards, we have organized our main actions and our initiatives. Firstly, the first step we took was to engage with our European Parliament counterparts. So the Minister of Interior has been in Brussels late January, right after we took the presidency, and presented the priorities at the Ample Committee. We also held an in-camera meeting with the House Committee, where the Minister engaged with MEPs and exchanged views and ideas on this crisis. And let us also take this opportunity to thank the European Parliament for all their hard work and the report that is prepared because it really complements the whole picture in the EU. And we believe very much in synergies of all the institutions. So right after this, we engaged with the European Commission. On 3rd of February, we held an informal ministerial conference for ministers responsible for housing. And let us say that this is not a very simple endeavor or exercise in the EU, since ministers responsible for housing differ among member states. They belong in different formations. So to have all the ministers participating in this VTC was very important and beneficial. And there we had the Commissioner Jorgensen, presenting the new plan. And the ministers had the opportunity to share their initial views and their preliminary remarks on the implementation of the plan. Subsequently, 1 month later, more or less, we held a ministerial lunch discussion entitled Building Futures, Housing Solutions in a Changing Demographic Landscape Across Europe, where ministers had the opportunity to exchange views, especially regarding the strong interplay between housing policies and demographic trends. And the main idea of this discussion was that it is not only about the numbers, but it is also about the suitability of housing, both the existing housing stock, but the future one as well. It was a very interesting discussion, and it was well received, this thematic area. And the conclusions of the discussion fed into our draft council conclusions, which circulated to the member states right after the EPSCO Council. The title of the conclusions is Housing, Shifting Demographics and Shaping Policies. This set of council conclusions is being discussed in the Social Questions Working Party. Our first meeting was 2 days ago on 24th of March. So the negotiations have just begun. And our next step and our main initiative and deliverable during the presidency is the informal ministerial conference on housing, with an in-person meeting in Cyprus in May. We can share some information maybe later on this meeting, which we are preparing. Actually, the agenda is being finalized at the moment, and we are taking very much into consideration the member states and their views on what needs to be discussed and shared at ministerial level. And last but not least, we have also outreached to the European Economic and Social Committee to prepare an exploratory opinion, which can give information and call upon EU institutions for further action. The opinion is called Tackling Housing Scarcity Through Affordable, Sustainable and Family-Oriented Housing Policies. We very much thank the rapporteur, Mr. Thomas Katnik, for his excellent work and his valuable contribution to advancing. I'm sorry?
Sorry, your connection froze, but now it's okay again. But you have 1 minute so that we can leave time for questions. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, and just to conclude, the final initiative during our presidency is to bring forward the conclusions for adoption at the EPSCO Council 29 of June. Thank you so much for your attention.
Close high. Sorry about that. Can I ask my colleague Dara to join me to look at the questions?
Yes, indeed. So we pick up a few questions in the chat. We only have a few minutes, so maybe we can be as brief as possible. But for example, we have a question here from Brian Mikalev, who's from your colleagues in the Mediterranean at the Maltese Housing Authority. And he's asking about the affordable rental housing scheme that was mentioned by Elena. So could you give us a bit more detail about how these units are defined? For example, is in terms of the rent setting, is it being set based on the cost of provision, based on the income of the household, or in relation to the market price, for example? And how is the income of the tenant being considered? Are there certain thresholds that must be respected for eligibility? So maybe that's a question for Elena.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, currently with the schemes that we currently implement, it's 30% below market prices. So affordable rent is set for 30% below market prices. For our next, as I said before, one of the future policy measures that we undertake the construction of 500 units on state-owned land. We are currently looking and discussing a new setting of affordable. It will not be actually an affordable rental price, but we will look, because depending on the people that we are going to provide these units for. So if we focus on low income residents, we may not we may not use this affordable rental price, like 30% below market prices. But currently we are doing some exercises, let's say now, for the new project.
Thank you very much, Elena.
Yeah, perfect. So one other question from the chat, and it's for whoever wants to answer. Can you provide more detail on the collective housing units construction scheme that you mentioned? How are these units different from ordinary homes that may be constructed in Cyprus? For example, are we talking about smaller size units or some sort of different planning regulations or amenities versus what would be required in a normal construction project?
If I can answer that, is a question regarding collective housing units for workers or for the student housing units? If it's for the collective housing units for workers, that's being undertaken at the moment. It has to do with low, let's say, specific requirements for minimum technical standards, let's say smaller area, smaller rooms, common areas, in order to support workers that work in the tourist industry or in factories. So it's kind of to help the industry for these schemes by providing specific requirements.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and thanks to all the speakers. I think we're running out of time, as should have been expected, because it's such an interesting topic. If you don't mind, we might maybe share your contacts afterwards to those who had additional questions that we didn't manage to answer. Let me thank all the speakers and all the participants today for being here with us. And just a small announcement that as a follow-up to this webinar, which will be made available on our social media channels and YouTube, we will also draft a profile for Cyprus as a follow-up to the State of Housing report, which we mentioned before, and that will be made available online in the near future. So thank you very much again to all of you for joining us today, and see you at the next State of Housing talk.
Thank you very much, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to put forward our schemes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.